The German economy is continuing to power forward despite concerns over how global trade conflicts could affect Europe's powerhouse. Germany's economy grew 0.5% in the second quarter, with the better-than-expected result driven by higher household and state spending. Meanwhile, imports grew 1.7% during the period, while shipments to the country rose 0.8%. Europe's biggest economy also notched up another 6-month record budget surplus in the first half of 2018, taking in $55.6 billion more than it spent. Well, for more on this, let's go to Jack Parrock, who's in Brussels for us. Jack, good to have you back on the program. Now, German politicians often see this trend of record surpluses as a source of national pride, the fact that the people of Germany can be prudent with their finances and that they also have great export success. But policymakers in Brussels see it as a bit of a problem for the Eurozone, don't they?
They certainly do. You have to remember that Germany as a country, while it is an economy in its own right, is in a single currency, and there are grumblings across the Eurozone about this idea of Germany basically reaping the surplus of other countries is how it's seen in some places. We saw a couple of months ago, for instance, the French President Emmanuel Macron said that Germany needs to wean itself off this fiscal conservatism. Germans are famed and, as you say, proud of their saver status. But in countries like Greece, for instance, which has just exited its third bailout totaling over $300 billion they've had to take in bailout funding and forced to take strict austerity measures, they don't like the idea that Germany is basically hoarding all the euros in Berlin and around Germany. So that's an issue here. While Germany will be proud of this and while it does show strength in the Eurozone, there are some grumblings that it should be shared a bit more widely throughout the Eurozone and that Germany should be investing in other Eurozone countries to try and spread that wealth.
Let's look at another Eurozone economy now. An Italian newspaper is reporting that the US has agreed to buy Italian government debt, which is fueling fears that Italy is preparing a budget that could go against EU spending rules. Now, this is a sign that this rift between the EU and Italy's new populist coalition is just widening, isn't it?
Certainly is. Italy really is starting to prove to be the thorn in the side of Brussels at the moment on a number of issues, but specifically there are a lot of concerns about this upcoming budget for 2019 in Italy. Now, this anti-establishment coalition government in Italy has promised tax cuts, the lowering of the retirement age, the raising of pension contributions for pension output for the people. So, and this is a major concern. As we say, the Eurozone is imposing austerity measures, and that's something that the Italian government wants to buck. Now, we'll have to wait and see whether the measures that the Italian government outline in their budget do actually go against EU rules and whether they do try and fill this in with, as you say, government bonds being sold to the United States, which is something that could be an option and something that we're understanding that could be looked at. Some of the measures that are suggested to be outlined at the moment could total around $140 billion that it would mean that the Italian government would have to take in, and whether the US can fill that gap, we'll have to wait and see. Interestingly as well today, we've had another sort of sidebar story regarding Italy. They've threatened not to pay in their EU contributions for next year, which is around $23 billion. And that's because they say the EU needs to help them more on the migration crisis. There's a boat at sea in Catania at the moment, just in the port, holding 150 asylum seekers that the Italian government are refusing to let onto the dockside.
And just quickly, Jack, we know that Donald Trump has ratcheted up this trade war with China, but European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker managed to avoid an all-out trade war with the US last month when he negotiated some sort of a truce. They've agreed to, I guess, negotiate their differences on trade. I'm wondering, is there an update on those negotiations?
At the moment, it looks calm. Donald Trump doesn't look like he wants to impose this 25% tariff on cars going into the United States from the European Union, as he suggested he was going to. Jean-Claude Juncker managed to persuade him away from that. With regards to the US, what we saw recently was Donald Trump accusing the European Union and China, in fact, of manipulating their currencies against the interests of the United States. We spoke to the European Central Bank just a couple of days ago, and they said they have absolutely no comment on this, saying that basically they don't believe that this is the case. This could be an interesting thing if Donald Trump continues to try and accuse the Eurozone of manipulating their currency. As I said, no comment from the European Central Bank.
Okay, Jack Parrock in Brussels, thank you as always.